Welcome back, everyone. Well, today I figured we'd see if we can put a door on this opening. So I need to build a bit of a framework to try to fill in the extra space that I've got around here. And this is the door that I'm using. So this is also from schooly.com. This is designed for something to close up a propane storage, which is exactly what I got here. So what I'm going to do, I built this framework in a previous video. If you want to take a look at that, I'll show you how to get to it. Down here, just got this sitting here so I can kind of lift the door up into position. I want to kind of pick it up, hold it right about there, and just see how much space I need to cover. So let's see what we can do. Here we go. So I'll see if I can set this up so I can show you what it looks like when it's upright, but this is kind of what I'm looking for. I want to try to center the door on the propane holder. So you see, it goes over to there and over to there. So I want to make sure the door is centered on that so I can slide my propane tanks inside. Now, this section here is about a foot off the ground as it currently sits. Back here in the back, there is a little bit of a drop down where this used to sit. I'm going to be taking that off. I don't really need it. So I'm going to try to split the difference, be a little bit higher up than that, see if I can just kind of angle it down. And then here, I'll have to angle it up pretty steep. But that should work out okay. So first thing I need to know is how much distance between this framework and this. So I'm going to need to make a piece of angle iron, a framework to go along this seam, up, across the top, and down the other side. Then I'm going to build a secondary frame that goes inside of this, right up in here. And then we'll put some pieces of sheet metal, sorry, not sheet metal, some pieces of structural component down in several places to stabilize it, down there and across down here. So I'll show you what that looks like. The first thing, I need to get the measurements right. Okay, let me show you what I got here. So if you're going to miter cut, definitely pay attention to how you miter cut, because I did these backwards. So I kind of did this as if I was going to be putting it on this way with the flat side away, but I've since decided that I want to put it on the other way, just because it'll give me something to actually weld my verticals to. So I'm going to flip this over like this, and we're going to go ahead and place this inside. Now that said, I think, which way do I want to do this? Yeah, okay. So we're going to do it this way. I'm going to slide this up inside here. And you'll see it slides right up into place. It sticks down just a little bit over here, but right underneath this rivet line it's about 1 inch away, so it actually works pretty well. This also gives me plenty of space to put corner rivets in here. And I'm going to go ahead and push this out. There we go. Just about like that. Okay. Let's push that over just a little bit. Yeah. So right there, I should have plenty of space to go ahead and do the full riveting. So I'm just going to go ahead and clamp this into position. Once I have that, then I can work on getting the measurements right. Okay, let's turn that around the other way, shall we? You know what? I didn't think this through very well, did I? Okay. Okay, there we go. So we're in position, and I'm ready to pre-drill. I may add a second clamp over here just to hold it in place, but the other thing to pay attention to, again, like I said, I kind of cut these backwards, so what I'm going to do instead, I had cut this flat on the bottom side. I was going to make a nice flat angle down here, but I'm going to go ahead and swap it around. So this one is the shorter one. It goes over here. Just like that. And that gives me the ability to tack that into place and weld it on. Comes right down to the bottom of the sheet metal, right where I wanted it to be. And this one, same thing. Okay, this one's actually long, so I'm going to need to cut this one off. Again, this would have been fine if I had actually done a miter cut. Because of the way I put this in, it's an inch shorter than I originally planned. So, I'm just going to cut this miter off of here, make it flat, and that should give me exactly what I need on the front side. Then I can get going on tacking this framework together. I'll get some pre-drilled holes in here just so I can kind of put it in place. And I can start working on the verticals and the horizontals that'll fill up the space to this framework down inside. Okay, there's the outer framework in place. This will slide up a little bit higher, just a little bit, but it should do just fine. I'm going to go ahead and, I think, yeah, I don't know. This doesn't really have to be waterproof, so I don't need to underlay the lower layer. So I may go ahead and place the underlayer over the top, just because I think I can get a better flat line than what the bus seems to have on it right now. Anyway, so down here when I did the welding, I ended up pulling this in just a little bit. It's easy enough to pull back out to line up with everything, so I'm not worried about it. I'll go ahead and put some, pre-drill some screw holes in there, put some self-tappers in just to hold it in place temporarily until I can get around to putting in the rivets. Next step, need to make the framework that's going to go inside of this. So another three-sided box. I'm going to go ahead and measure this out and see if I can get it in the right place. And then I'll work on putting the two together. So getting the right spacers in where they need to be. There's the lower frame, mitered and welded. I didn't put any welds around the outsides of these seams. Really, they're just there to provide some stability for the sheet metal. I think there should be more than enough strength to hold this door in place. But now, next step, I'm going to take this, set it up on the transmission jack here so I can get it in position, and start taking some measurements between the two frames so I know how long to make my verticals coming down from the top. I'll probably do 3, and I'll probably do 2 on each side, just one up high and then one down low somewhere, just to make sure I've got good stability down at the bottom of the sheet metal. But yeah, we'll get that welded together, and I should have a framework I can put a door into. So what I'm going to do now is line this back up. I went ahead and left the inner frame off of this because I don't really need it. The inner frame lines up just fine with the outside of this sheet metal, and I can kind of push this one around into position where I need to, so just like that. So I need to take some measurements and figure out how big my spacers need to be to get this where I want it. So step 1, get it up to about where I want it to sit. I think that's about right. Okay. Now, I know I'm not working on a level playing field here, but my hope is to get that around maybe 16 inches off the ground. And here, we're about 13. So I think what I'm going to do, that, and then I can always make up the difference with angling the rear sheet metal. So, let's take a measurement back here and make sure I'm about right. Yeah, so if I go to 13, I should be fine. I could even go as high as 14 if I really wanted to, but 13 is not bad. Okay. So, Slide this into place. And we're here under about 12.5 off the ground. And again, with the way the sheet metal lines up, I think I'm just going to accept that. So now, what I'm going to do, there we go. Okay. Hold that up, hold that in position. And just try to get a bit of an idea of where we stand. Okay. So I think if I make these exactly 5 inches, that should be perfect. That'll put it just like a 1/16 of an inch below where it is now. 5. Yeah, 5 will work. And yeah, okay. So 5 inches for the top. Then what we'll do next, I'm just going to lay this down and try to center it on that. There we go. Okay, there's 5. Okay, now with that in position there, let's take a measurement here and see what we got. There we go. Okay. So in that position, what I want is about 1 7/8. Okay, 1 7/8 on the left, 5 on the top. And we can take a measurement over here. And on this side, looks like I need about 17. Okay. So 1 7/8, 5, and 17. Alright, so let's see how we did. So over here, I got my 17s, and it is a nice even fit between these, ever so slightly short. But that's okay, because I can actually pull this in a little bit. Okay, perfect. Here's the inch and 7/8. Ah, that's why it's short. So this one got shifted just a little bit. There we go. When we push that into position, that is right where it should be. Perfect. Okay. Now 5 inch. Stand this up. Okay, so it's going to sit just a little bit higher up than this, which is fine. And obviously this piece needs to slide up into position, so I'll be okay on my height. Just a little bit higher than that, and I'll fill in the gap with sheet metal. Alright, let's go get this all welded together, and I can put the inner frame on, because like I said, I cut it to shape around the outer dimensions of this door. So it should be easy enough to take care of. So now the question becomes, where do I want these to be? So I've got the outer frame right where I want it. And I think I want to try to line up with rivet lines if I can. So right here, I'm going to center this one right there. And I've got 2 more, so let's skip 1 rivet and come over 1 more. So right about here. Again, I'm marking my centers. And over here, same thing, skip a rivet right about there. And I'll mark it underneath, okay? Now on the sides, I think I want my bottom one to be right about at the rivet line on the top of this rub rail here. Let's go about there. And on this side, I'll do the same thing. Slide that into position, make sure it's where I want it. There we go. Okay, and there's our rivet line. Right about there. Okay, and then up top, I think what I might do is line up How far down is that? I need to make sure I stay down more than 5 inches to make sure I can actually catch that frame. So, 5 inches puts me right at about there, so I'll need to be at this rivet and that one. So let's go ahead and line this up if I can. Right about here. There we go. And that's 2 rivets up from there, but I think that's about 8 inches down from the top of the framework. Let's see if I've got one over here that lines up with that. Huh? Yeah, I do. 8 inches down, so right here. Okay. So we'll go ahead and mark this one as well. Okay. There we go. So these two are going to be a little bit on the low side, but again, I think they have to be in order to get the framework to line up properly. So hopefully that works out the way I want it to. You know what? I just realized something. Let's take a measurement on it, shall we? So this mark is 17 down. So let's go 17 down on this side just to make it even, shall we? See what we got down there. I don't have 17 down. What I could do is attach it on this lower rivet line. That would work out okay. Do I want to do that? Yeah, let's do that. Okay, lower rivet line. About there. That puts it down pretty far, but I think I'll be okay. Just get an idea of where that's going to put me. Yeah, that'll be fine. That'll be fine. Okay, so what I'm going to do next, take all this inside the bus, weld everything together, and then I'll bring it back out here for final fitting. Alright, there's our framework. I ended up having to make a couple of adjustments to it. So over here I had cut these long ones a little bit too long, so I had to shave them down just a little bit. But the position looks good. I'm happy with the height. It's sitting just above this front side skirt and quite a bit above the back, or well, more specifically below the skirt when I take off that extra piece of sheet metal. So I'm going to kind of do a gentle drop down from there to the bottom of that. So that should work out pretty nicely. I've got it held up in position right now. Yes, I know things aren't exactly straight, but I don't really care all that much. I'm not planning on putting rivets in all the way across. Honestly, I'll probably just do rivets along the outside and then along the inside, and then probably leave that center section completely undone. I just don't know that I need to be honest with you. But we'll kind of see how this back section looks. I may put 1 or 2 rivets right in the middle there just to kind of stabilize that back curtain. But anyway, my plan always was to take off that bottom piece that was extended down because of this part of the air conditioning and try to increase the ground clearance just a little bit. So I didn't use a framing square or anything else on any of these, so that's why you'll notice they're not quite straight. But again, it's all going to be behind sheet metal, so I'm not really worried about that. As long as the inner opening is the right size and the right dimensions to line up with what I've got, then I'm okay. So I think we're going to be fine. I'm going to put some clamps on this to kind of hold it in place against the side skirt and see if I can't drill out some of those holes and start working on getting it attached. Yes, I still need to paint it, but we're getting there. Just thought I'd give you a look at it as it stands with the door on it. So that one lines up really nicely. In the process of my pushing things around, trying to get everything to line up, I didn't actually do any damage to the inner frame, so it fits great. That's right where I wanted that door to be. So yeah, we'll get started on drilling some holes, figuring out where the rivets are going to go, and I'll kind of work from there. I think I might try to put rivets top and bottom in the same position, so I'll use a framing square. So I think you can see it up in there, where the self-tapping screws were. I'm going to go ahead and use those holes as my rivet lines. And if I put a framing square on that, I should be able to come straight down to the lower portion here and get a hole right where it needs to be. So we'll see if we can line that up. That's not very many rivets, so I'll have to add a few extras probably. But yeah, I think we're gonna have it. Welcome back to a few weeks later. Jobs sure get in the way of projects, don't they? So what we're going to do today, I'm going to try to finish off the sheet metal work on this. I may or may not be able to get it riveted in place today. It's a little bit cold for painting. So I'm trying to use some leftover pieces of sheet metal. These are cut-offs from the pieces that I used to put up on the sides up here. And as you can see, even this one isn't quite large enough to cover the framework all in one piece. So I think what I'm going to do is try to do a two-piece coverage. That front section is going to be a little bit more complicated just because it sticks down pretty far. But my goal here, right here we got a natural seam anyway, so I'm just going to measure off of this hole here and try to match the seam as best I can. And we'll see if we can get at least this last section in one piece, and then we'll see what we can do about the front half. Well, good news. I found this extra piece in the garage, so I've got plenty of material here now. So two pieces. This one is going to go over the majority of the door opening, and then down the little piece on the side that's kind of over, actually I guess it's on this side, sorry. That'll go all the way over here to this point, and then this other piece here will cover the majority of the framework. So all of this section over here, and cover a little bit of the door with some overlap. So with that combination, I should be able to make it look like it belongs there. There we go. So I need to do a little cleanup around the edges, get all the extra slag and other stuff off of there. But I think we got it. So this should line up pretty close to where that existing seam is on the bus. In fact, I might hold one of these up just to make sure it's going to look like I want it to. But yeah, next step, I'm going to flip the whole thing upside down, make sure everything's lined up, and then go ahead and drill the sheet metal here to match up with the holes around the opening and the ones that I drilled into the framework underneath. That way I can put the rivets in. Alright, I think we got everything drilled. I went ahead and put a couple of extra holes down here in the middle just to kind of hold this sheet down. I may have to do a little bit of reaming out on these, just because I know at least the centerpiece here was able to slide around just a little bit as I was doing my drilling. I could have fixed that by putting a couple of clamps on it, but I didn't do it. So that's alright. Again, I don't really care what it looks like from behind, it's all a matter of what it looks like from the front. So I'm going to take this all apart, get it painted up, and see if we can get it installed. There's our framework in place. I just put primer on between the sheet metal and the frame, and then along the back of everything I painted it with bed liner. So hopefully the exposed areas will be plenty protected, and I'm not terribly worried about some rusting on the inside. I can always replace a panel later if I have to. I suppose I could have painted the whole thing, but that's alright. So I've now got all the outer holes drilled out to 17/64, so that's my rivet size. I need to do the same thing for the overlying sheet metal, and once I do that, I'm going to put a couple of rivets in from the back just to kind of hold things into place, and then I'll start working the ones from the front just to make sure everything lines up. Obviously I'll have to take the clamps off in order to get everything on there with the sheet metal, but that's okay. We'll get working on that.